And something that we have talked about a lot and we've been looking at, we've got a $15 billion surplus in the state of Georgia. How do we fill in the gaps for these cuts that are coming from the federal government? We know that our veterans are often in need of immediate access to mental health care, in addition to seeing your primary physician and other things that help you maintain your health. But this is something that we've got to look closely at as a state, because it is a challenge, especially for our veterans. And in this area, I believe there are 20,000 veterans in this area. It's a significant number. And any cut is disruptive to the care that's already difficult to access. So I believe that the state has a responsibility to figure out how we fill in that gap. So we have half our counties don't have OGBYNs, half our counties don't have pediatricians, half our counties have more deaths than births, and then on top of that, you have cuts to the VA that's making it challenging to receive health care. And that is a serious concern in this state, and it's something that I think the state has to do a deep dive and figure out how we plug in the gaps. Community health centers are closing across this state. A lot of the money that was coming from the CDC that flowed directly into our counties, into our communities, that money has been cut off. So it may not have been our responsibility to begin with, but it's certainly our responsibility to figure out how we address it.
People on the other side, we haven't forgotten about you.
Hello, I'd like to piggyback off of her question regarding mental health, and I think one may be cause and effect for the other. Any thoughts on mental health and homelessness? We have, everybody can see a lot of the people that are suffering from mental health, you know, if there were a hospital or whatever, and then there is no place for them to stay.
So we know government can't do it all alone. We don't have the resources, we don't have the bandwidth. But I do believe we can be most effective when we are great partners. So I'll go back to something we did in Atlanta. I think it was Partners for Home that we partnered with on this. I hope I'm not getting that name right, because we had several partners. But we specifically went after reducing homelessness in our veteran population. And we achieved what we call effectively zero for our veteran population. It was a targeted effort, but it was more than just giving people a roof over their head. There's a strategy called housing first. Get a roof over someone's head, and then you can provide the services. The other part to that was to give them what we call wraparound services. So if you are a veteran experiencing homelessness and it's due to a mental health crisis that you may be having, then when we provide those wraparound services, we know where you are, we know what resources you need. Do you need job training? Do you need mental health services? Do you need healthcare services? And we provide those services. We literally, as a community, wrap our arms around you and provide those services. And that is, and again, I give this example, if it can be done there, it can be done everywhere. But it's about effective partnerships and being a great partner.
How you doing, Ms. Bottoms?
Hello, how are you?
All right, I am E.J. Thomas from 983B. I have a question for you. Being that you have served as a mayor and a judge, how will public safety look under your tenure, and particularly policing practices and the crime rate lowering?
So public safety is an overarching thing, whether or not it's an election, whether it's in the election year or not. I think that there is a combination. One, you have to support your police officers. You know, there's some people who don't like the idea of supporting police officers. And my question is, well, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters? You want well-trained police officers. You want people who want to do the job to serve the community. I believe in community policing, where our police officers are integrated in our community so that when they come in contact with you, it's not the first time that they've seen you, that you have developed a rapport and a relationship with officers in the community. But I also think, you know, we have to look at the other side of it as well, and how our citizens are treated. What are their rights if they do have a bad encounter with a police officer? How do we deal with those officers? How do we look at criminal justice reform as a whole? Are we just creating a revolving door where people are just going in and out of prison with no hope for job training, with no hope for completing their education, with no housing on the other side? All of these things go hand in hand.
Hello, I'm all up on your like everybody here, I would appreciate you for making Scobie County a stop on your campaign trail. The lady up front touched on mental health. State of Georgia has roughly almost 700,000 veterans. Many are homeless. I'm a veteran who's caring for a veteran who was homeless myself. We know that mental health, addiction, and unemployment drive homelessness. And you just spoke briefly about services that you have, but are there any services that you think, because Muskogee County is a military town. Fort Benning, it's always going to be Fort Benning here. Fort Moore is the biggest military installation in Georgia, second in the nation. Home of the infantry, airborne, air assault. Okay? So there's veterans in here right now, and we have a homeless problem here. Anywhere, but we are Muskogeans, and we have a homeless problem. With that being said, you touched on homelessness, the services you provide. What can you expand on? What can we see here? This is Muskogee, it's a problem here. What do you foresee, you as our future governor of the state of Georgia, what do you think you can help to expand on the services for our homelessness here?
Thank you for your service, and to all of our service people in the audience, thank you all for your service. And again, it is what I spoke about, effective partnerships. The state is not going to be able to do it alone. The state doesn't have the toolkit and the resources to do it alone. But we can work with credible partners to make sure that we are great partners. From doing anything as of providing housing for our homeless veterans. That's something that the state can lean into, in providing resources for housing, to making sure that we're working with our partners, that we are providing mental health services for our veterans who may be experiencing homelessness, to making sure that we are partners, that we are great partners, not just sometime partners, but great partners, because there are groups who have done this and they have achieved success, because we were a part of it in Atlanta with our veteran population, but it has to be a partnership. And again, if it can be done there, it can certainly be done here.
Good evening. I think I know what group you're with. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am Dr. Katrina Strozier, MD, board certified OBGYN. And I would like to speak and just acknowledge the state of Georgia for really expanding postpartum Medicaid. Most people don't know, postpartum Medicaid initially was 6 weeks after you had a baby. It could be extended up to 3 months. Over the last couple of years, it has extended to 1 year, and that has afforded a lot of women additional birth control as well as mental health. However, within the last year, a lot of women have been cut, even during their pregnancy, of their Medicaid, with stringent laws or new changes in that government. And so I'm seeing a lot of patients come into the hospital. I work in a private practice, but I also work in emergency services at our hospital locally. I am seeing a significant number of patients who have lost their Medicaid and are unable to get a provider to take them because they don't have insurance. There's concerns about reimbursement on the provider level. So I would like to know, as Governor, how you would handle that. My second concern is the abortion law. We do know that there was mass exodus and retirements of OBGYNs for fear of ridicule, as well as we're not making our moms safer. The abortion law has definitely tied our hands in circumstances that the law is determining the healthcare instead of the research and the medical experience that we have for our patients that may come in ruptured or have an infection. Clearly, there are different things, but patients are fearful if they have a heartbeat because of this law, and it's almost like it's tying our hands as providers. I would like to know what we can do at a policy level. How are you handling the abortion law?
So I'll go back to the Medicaid question, and this is before the big ugly bill. We left $700 million on the table as a state because we hadn't expanded Medicaid in the state. So by not expanding Medicaid, not only do we have people who don't have access to Medicaid, but we have left money on the table because we've not expanded Medicaid. In terms of the abortion law, there's a candidate who stood right next to Brian Kemp signing that law with a real big grin on his face when he did it. And what I would say to people, and this is the Bible Belt. I grew up in a missionary Baptist church, so I know the conversations around abortion can be very sensitive and conflicting to people. People have to understand an abortion is not just about terminating a pregnancy. An abortion can be sometimes about saving a woman's life who's experiencing a miscarriage. It can be any number of things. I know I'm preaching to the choir because you are an OBGYN. So this is why when we have this conversation around reproductive health care, it has to be a comprehensive conversation. Do I believe a woman should have a right to choose? I absolutely believe a woman should have a right to choose. Do I also believe that a doctor should be able to provide health care for a patient based on their training and not out of fear of what the law may do or how they may be prosecuted or how they may lose their license? I believe we need to stay out of that. I think those ethical decisions should be made between a woman and her doctor, and I don't think anybody in government should do it anyway.
Hi, future Governor Keisha Lance Bottoms. So I came here undecided and had a great conversation with Ashley because I was like, man, Jason is from Columbus. Man, got the flying biscuits, which is so good. But then you said you knew the Dolans. Seal the deal. So
right.
With that stated, I'm
when I win by one vote, Mr. and Mrs. Dolan is going
they are responsible. With that said, I represent the creative economy here in Columbus, Georgia, Music Entertainment Council, and we are forming on the state side a creators collective. So there are over 1,400 people all around the state who are good at what they do. And Friday we met at Georgia Tech, and we're forming this collective. So being that you possibly will be our governor, what is your stance on the creative economy, being that we contribute 4% GDP for the state, which is almost matches agriculture? Do you have anything specific? What we want is an office that is inclusive of all things creativity. I will hear your thoughts.
So I just have to give a little bit of my background. I am here because of the creative economy of the state. I mentioned my dad was an entertainer. He came here performing on the Chitlin circuit, met my mother, and now. So I know that there are very deep roots in this state. A lot of people are making money through our creative community, whether it be from our film programs to our music industry and beyond. The state has a whole department that focuses on attracting business to the state. But again, if that work is not trickling down to our communities who need it best, who need it most, then we're not doing our job as a state, because it can't be for some and not be for everybody. And I'll just give you an example. Again, in Atlanta, we had a film and entertainment office in Atlanta. We created a fund for our creatives, specifically during COVID, when people couldn't work. We created grants for our creative community. Again, it can be done, those things can be done statewide. And a lot of it is about educating people so that you can access it. So you don't find out about these opportunities after the grants are no longer in place or after the deadline has been cut off. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Butler, for visiting Columbus. Rocky March, veteran, and Vice President of River Valley Black Chamber of Commerce. I want to go back to homelessness really quick. I know you've been talking a lot about that this evening. But my question is, a lot of veterans are under housed and they choose to be, and that's one of the challenges that we're having here in the community. And I was wondering if I could glean from your municipality experience as mayor, city councilor, how might Columbus learn from your experience, short of addressing homelessness, short of giving homelessness a ticket when they can't pay it, or put them in a jail, in an overcrowded jail, so we can glean and grow here in Columbus?
So there were a few things that we did. One, and you know this as well as I do, there are several touch points that you often have to have with someone who is not prone to accept housing. And that reason could be because they are experiencing a mental health challenge. Maybe they have gone into a shelter situation that was not positive for them. There could be any number of reasons. And I hope I'm not misquoting on the point, on this point. I think it was like 12 touch points sometimes that you have to access someone. So that means you got to have boots on the ground with people going directly to people who are sleeping on our streets, offering them services. The other thing that we did in the city of Atlanta, we created a space in our city jail. This was also with the support of our Superior Court judge, where if someone received a ticket for trespassing because they were sleeping in front of a business, then rather than locking that person up, they would take them into the center to have them assessed, and then offering these wraparound services that we talked about. We even had success during COVID. Someone recently shared with me that their brother he was a veteran who had been experiencing homelessness. We were able to house him. This is when the governor and I were getting along swimmingly at the beginning of COVID, and he put me over the homeless task force. We were able to house her brother during COVID. He was able to receive those wraparound services, and he's still housed to this day and is doing very well. So you've got to have partners on the ground. You've got to have, I believe, a place in the community where officers can take someone to have them assessed, and where they can be offered services while you have them in your, I don't want to use the word control, while you have their attention. And again, if you all have ideas that are separate from what I'm offering as answers to your questions, please feel free to share those with me, whether it be veteran homelessness or anything that educate me too.
Good evening, Ms. Lance Bottoms. First, I want to say thank you for offering yourself up for service. I appreciate your candidacy and appreciate having options. My name is Lorraine Moore, and I'm an attorney, and over the course of my career, I've had an opportunity to work in the criminal justice system, both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. So I want to circle back around to criminal justice reform. I recall that, first of all, for as long as I can remember, Georgia has ranked in the top 10 in this country in terms of rate of incarceration. At some point, it's even been in the top 5. Under former Governor Nathan Deal, he did the Criminal Justice Reform Act, which made a lot of changes in terms of our prisons, our juveniles. And so my question is, do you still see opportunities to expound on that? And if so, what? Of course, one of the things that pains me the most, and I know that Georgia does have the First Offender Act, but still, it just is such a heavy burden for a person to have a felony conviction and not be able to, there's still a lot they can do over and above not get a job. So what are your thoughts on opportunities to expound on what Governor Nathan Deal started?
So I'll just share a personal story with you all. I mentioned my dad. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. Best father anybody could ask for. My father went to prison. So some of my earliest memories of Columbus are coming to visit my father. I can't remember if it was in Columbus or near Columbus, at a prison here. So I know how a criminal conviction impacts not just the person who's incarcerated, but it's a sentence for the entire family, quite honestly. And I give my dad as an example because this was a wonderful man who ran out of options. He had some struggles with addiction and, wasn't selling music like he used to and made some bad decisions. So I often say, good people just sometimes make bad mistakes. They make bad decisions. It doesn't mean that you throw away the key if they are not, it's one thing to lock up violent criminals. I'm not talking about people who murder people and rape people. I'm talking about nonviolent offenders. There has to be hope on the other side of incarceration for people. And I had this conversation in one of the cities we were visiting in the state, and I talked about GED programs in prisons, and a woman very politely said to me, a GED program is great, but if you can't read a GED program, it's not going to do anything for you. So we've got to peel back all the layers. Who are the nonviolent offenders who can't read? Who are the ones who just need some job training skills? Who are the ones who want to get their GED? And it has got to be about more than serving a sentence. It has got to be about rehabilitation, because rehabilitation is not just for that person, it's for the family that they want to come out of prison and care for. Program that we had in the city of Atlanta, in conjunction with the Urban League, we trained nonviolent offenders while they were still incarcerated to work in our watershed department. We were talking about this earlier, and Tracy brought up the point. Some of these men had never been able to pay child support. They came out with $9,000 saved up and a job with benefits. A job, by the way, that we were paying $15 an hour a minimum for our city workers. Those are the type programs that we've got to look at replicating across the state. And again, you'll hear me talk a lot about partnerships. We couldn't do that just by ourselves. We were able to work with the Urban League, a group that knows how to do job training. They did job training way better than we did. And these men were able to go into well-paying jobs and provide for their families.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Gotel. I am currently a counselor with the GBRA. My question is kind of a two-parter. The first part is, do you plan on, when you get into office, do you plan on raising the wages for state workers?
Yes.
Awesome. And the second part, for example, I worked at a couple of agencies within this field. I've also worked at DFACS. I enjoyed my time working there, but the main problem that I had was the amount of people that we had working. We didn't have enough investigators. Like at my current position now, we don't have enough counselors. I just recently started the position. I just got a caseload last week, and just sifting through the caseloads, I'm talking to people who haven't been talked to in months, a year, just because of the turnover in the agency. And so I just feel like I've seen so many people leave this field, so many great case managers, so many great counselors, so many great social workers leave because of the wages. It's hard to try to help people in poverty when you're on the line of poverty yourself. So do you plan on increasing the number of people that we have in agencies just to help with that workload?
So there are several things. One, looking at wages. You all know the minimum wage in Georgia is just dismal. Making sure, it's 5 something an hour. It's insane. Below the federal minimum wage. Making sure that our workers in this state are making a livable wage is important. But also, you don't want people, especially in critical jobs like you have, you don't want them just surviving. You want them to be able to thrive. And there are other things also that we can look at doing. How are we providing workforce housing? Specifically for our social workers and for our teachers and for our postal workers and people who are providing very important services to us, but may not necessarily be making the wages that they deserve to make. So that is, first of all, thank you for your work. Thank you for your honesty and transparency in sharing that. And then thirdly, we gotta do better in the state. That's it. We have to do better. And again, when you have a $15 billion surplus, and I'm not saying that we want to go, deplete our surplus. The surplus is important, but if it's not there to help people when they need help, then what is it there for?